Hello everybody, my name is Matthew, also known as Slamlight on the Discord. Uh, I am going to show you guys how to make block states in the Station API. Block states are more of a modern Minecraft thing, but Station API re-implements instead of this older version, and it allows for a lot of really cool like backporting of current Minecraft content. And let's just say you were trying to make a Minecraft mod that worked on the latest version of Minecraft and beta 1.7.3. Well, this is like one of those things where it's extremely compatible. So today I'm going to show you how those work. So I have this URL in the description. You can just clone it in IntelliJ. And here I'm just going to name it beehives because I'm going to go ahead and backport beehives. And I already have Station API from the last tutorial. So we're going to take a look at how we can implement block states. Let's go ahead and clone that. All right, so there's a lot of things that I want to kind of run through because we talked all about making a block in the last version, and we talked about it in the way that you did it in, I guess, other beta 1.7.3 ways, like the mod loader and things like that. But this time we're pretty much circumnavigating all the texture loading and all that, and it's all going to be file based or data driven, as modern Minecraft does as well. So um, I'm going to go ahead and set up the project again, and the mod ID beehives. Adds beehives to beta 1.7.3. I'm the author. Beehives. Beehives is one word, so I just capitalized the B there. And paving group, and we're set up. So everything's rearranged. So this is something that I didn't talk about last time, but I'm going to delete this beehives like a beginning file because it's just it's one of the fabric starting things. But I'm going to delete that, and we're going to start straight away with actually adding the beehive block. So let's go ahead and make another block listener just like last time. And we are going to make our entry point dot namespace private static final namespace mod ID. Actually, yeah, util again. I'll just name it namespace this time. That seems to be what everyone's doing nowadays. And I'm gonna make our public static block beehive Minecraft block. Yeah, make sure you're importing the right stuff. And then an event listener for the public static void register blocks. This can be named anything, by the way. I didn't mention that last time, but block registry event. All right. And let's go ahead and set this beehive. New template block. Mod ID, actually, sorry, namespace dot ID beehive. So we're not bringing underscore anything because this is how it is in modern Minecraft. And I'm just trying to make a simple backport. Oh, and I need to set the material as well. So I'll make it wood. Oh, and again, we got to set the translation key to the same thing here. And let's set the sound group to, probably want a woods sound group. The hardness of wood in this version is 2.0F, and also the resistance of wood is 5.F. Okay, so that's our beehive all set up. Okay, so we're not gonna stick with the template block, and I'm not even gonna actually. Let's first. I'm also gonna create our Station API folder right away, because that is what we're gonna be basically putting all of our block state stuff into. But just to begin with, I'm gonna create our usual lang file. So that way we have a nice name. en underscore us.lang. Make sure that's this path has to be the same with your mod ID here, right? And this is going to be tile.at, and at just gets replaced with beehives in this case, or just your mod ID. And beehive.name is equal to beehive. Okay, that's our lang file. So also, just if you haven't done this yet, if you go into your Gradle and Gradle settings, make sure it's on Tamarin again, right here. And under Minecraft client, I'm also going to change it to Tamarin. Okay, so let's just make sure that the block even exists. Oh, it shouldn't exist yet because I first need to do something else. So I'm going to cancel that. And remember, we actually have to add it to the event bus for it to show up. So it's going to be the path to our file. There we go. That works. Okay, so now let's check if it shows up. Oh, all right. So let's check that. Beehive is right there. And there you go. Our typical basic block. And you can tell it has the wood sounds as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and add that block state stuff. So we'll probably begin with the actual block itself. Well, actually, no, let's take a look at the files and then we'll build a block based off the files. Because in this case, since we already know what the beehive is going to be like, um, we'll start with the file so that we can kind of take a look at what that looks like. So we're going to first start with the block state. So the block states folder determines basically, hey, depending on the variables that are given from the block, or like basically like think of it like metadata, but times a million, like that you could have as much metadata as you want. And we'll just start with beehive.json. And basically, based off of that, we're going to choose a model. So let's create a new folder, models, and in this models, we're going to have different block models, and we're also going to have item models. Oh, sorry. So there's a lot of different files we're going to have here. So for the the contents of this, I just grabbed it from the like most modern version of Minecraft, and you can do so too. But for this one, oh, well, um, I'm just gonna leave it in the description here, so you can download the folder that contains all of these different things. I'll have like block state model and things like that, and it'll just have all the JSON files and this lang file. Um, so I recommend copying like this one, for example, but this one, you know, you can just type it. It doesn't really matter. So you can see here that we have these variants, and let's just say that like you were creating a basic block that only had one variant. You would just array, like pretty much instead of doing all this, you would literally just have, and this is for like the rotation and stuff like that. But if we just did this and we had like this would be like, hey, there is no different variables. There's only one way that it'll ever look. And something like this would be, and you probably wouldn't even have this variance thing. It would just be like this pretty much. But when you do have different variants, um, you put in what the variants are, like which direction it's facing, and in this case, honey level, which is a custom kind of like variable that you can set. And I'll show you how to have a custom variable in just a second. But and then you just want to have all the different variations of possible types of variables that can be in that spot. So I just decided that the beehive was a pretty good example, and you can see that it references the model of well, I put beehives in here, but this actually had Minecraft before, but beehives is the mod ID. And let's just say that you decided to have a different mod ID here. You would change this to the mod ID that you have. So just Control F, Control R, and then you'd be like your mod ID. But just make sure that you do that in every single one, or else it's not going to work as expected. But in this case, it is just beehives. Okay, so that's our block states held, but you can see that this block states is referencing this block beehive. So it'd be this folder block, and then we would probably want another beehive.json inside of there. And you can also see that in here, it's not just beehive, it's also beehive underscore honey. So we also want to create a beehive underscore honey. All right. So this this beehive JSON, I'm just parenting from this Minecraft block orientable with bottom, and I would show you what that looks like. But I have to go into like Station API code. But basically, just understand that like this parent, and I recommend looking up like different like JSON parents on Google Chrome, and you can just see the ones made in Minecraft. But it all boils down to, I think the only difference on this one is that it gives a special like orientation in your hand, um, just because the front of it's in north, and so it rotates it so in your hand so that it's properly the front of it that you see. Okay, so and these are just referencing to textures, as you can see textures. So that's kind of our sign to go ahead and create another folder inside of Station API for textures. And you see that there's another like block, so we can just go ahead and create a new folder for block. And again, I'm gonna have all these textures in the description, but basically we have the beehive end, which would be the top and bottom, the front of it with honey, and the sides of it. So that's our textures. Um, so we have the one without the honey in front and the one with honey in front that I still need to get in. There we go. So the only difference here is that this one has the honey on the front, inside of this front like value. So this one has just regular beehive front. Okay, so that's pretty much all of our JSONs. And so you would think, oh, okay, so we have our block state. This has to be the same as the block ID, and these ones are arbitrary as long as you put them right here. But yeah, so this one's the only one that has to match the name of the block. But if I run it now, there's going to be a little bit of an issue, and I'll show you that right here. If I scroll up down here, you can see there's all these exception loading block state definition. It's basically saying unknown property facing, like we don't know what that is, and it's just saying facing here because it hasn't gotten to honey level. It's just the first thing it sees, and it says like, yep, we can't do this. This variable doesn't exist for this block. It doesn't make any sense. So that's basically what this exception is all about. So what we have to actually do is we have to give this beehive that sort of block state. And so we're going to do that by creating a class for this block. We'll just name it beehive block. And we're going to extend template block so that we can, remain with parity with what we already had. And we're now going to basically have our, we're going to set up those properties, those variables inside of our block state. Okay, and just understand that like you can have any sort of property, and the properties are like the variables in these JSONs. So let's go ahead and set that up. But we're gonna have public static final, which is just basically referring like every single block that has this are gonna have the same properties. Okay. Direction property. So this is basically like, is it facing upwards, downwards, northwest, east, south? And we're not even going to use upwards and downwards ever, so we're not going to worry about those. But actually, I'm not even sure 100% if this has an up or down direction. So let me check on that. Direction property. It doesn't even say, but yeah, I'm just control clicking. But I guess I could check if I did. Yeah, I'm not really sure 100% on that, but I know that it does have the cardinal directions. And I can also create another one, which is going to be an integer, or yeah, integer property. Oh, sorry, int property, honey level. So that'll also be good. So it wants us to initialize these. Just for clarity's sake, I'm going to make it inside of a static block. I'm going to say facing is equal to properties.facing. And so this is like the definition of like, hey, what should the file actually contain? So if I go in here, all it is direction property of facing, and then it gives us the options. So yeah, here we are. Directions are here, and then we also have up and down, but we're not going to use up and down. And then we also have honey level. And this one, technically, if we actually go in here, you can see that honey level is actually in here, um, inside of this properties, which is like all, it basically is all block and fluid state properties that Minecraft uses, right? It would make sense that it's here, but we're actually, just for the sake of like learning, we're gonna make our own. So in property dot of, and then you just need to give it a name. So the name it's gonna look for inside of that file, honey level, and we need to know the minimum and the maximum values. Okay, so there you go. And just be careful when you're making like block states, because every single block state property you have creates like different like versions of the block that are going to be in memory forever, basically. So let's just say that we did like this and we had like a bunch of variables that were 0 to 5. Just understand that like for every single 0 of this one, it has to do every single one of these. And and just like think about how like that stacks. Like if you're familiar with like permutations and how like it multiplies and stuff, like just know that this is like a lot of variations if you had like a bunch of different things. And just know that has to be stored in memory like at all times. So you just got to be mindful of that. So there's our like honey level. But even if we set this up on here, there would be no error now, but unfortunately it wouldn't really show properly until we give it a default state. So we'll set the default state of, and then we're going to use get state manager dot get default state. And so that's just giving us a default state to work with. So states 0. Yeah, so this is what we're going to build off of. And just like this is just basically like a very basic template for us to like build anything onto. So we're going to go ahead and give the properties that we actually have for this block, which is facing. And the default facing for the honey block in modern Minecraft is north. And then also we'll also give it the honey level 0, because it wouldn't really make sense for it to already be maxed out on honey. Okay, so if we take a look at how the like honey block states work, it looks like the 0 through 4 are just like they're basically identical, and it's just basically using this variable for like loading up the block with honey. And then on this last one, it's probably like in the harvestable state. So we're not really going to worry about it being harvestable or anything, but we just got to like kind of understand why it's 0 to 5, and 5 is actually when it shows, right? Um, and we also, before we can continue, we actually need to like tell the block class, this template block class, that we want these properties to be applied to it. And we do that by using builder dot and then add. And then we can just add as many properties as we want here with commas. So we'll do facing and also honey level. Okay. So we have all of this stuff registered with like this is our default block state, and these are the different properties that are relevant to this block. Okay. So that's basically all that we need. I never added an item model as well, so let's go ahead and create that really quick because this one's like not that complicated. But yeah, basically for this item model, we don't even have to like, so this one's a little different. This one has to be the same as like how in block states, this has to be the name of the block. So in here, it also has to be the name of the block. And just like know that like it already knows that it's like beehives : by just being under this folder. So let's go ahead and create that beehive.json. And for this one, it's just going to be, we're going to have a parent block. Like basically, if this parent is already an existing block, by using this block slash, we can go ahead and use that. And so this is just actually referring to the model. So if it basically says parent, and then this parent can be anything inside of the models. And if the model is a block model like this one is, and it goes up through the parent, and basically up, if we kept going through up the parents, eventually it'd be like a cube model. And just because it's a cube model, it'll automatically detect, oh, this should probably be a cube as well. And so it'll be a cube in game. Okay, so now that we have all of that set, we have the item properly set, and we have the block models, and we have the textures in all the locations that it expects. If we go in now, voila, we have this wonderful looking block with all of the sides that we expect it to have. So The one thing to note here is that what gives? I'm over here and it's not facing me, you know, like it should definitely be looking towards me. But the reason why is because it's like, well, how in the world does it know which direction facing you want? Like for example, if I grab the dispenser and a piston, like that's facing me, and the piston's also facing me. Actually, there's a block in modern Minecraft that like you place it and it faces away from you. I think it's the observer. Um, but basically, like there are some cases in which you'd want it to face you, and there are some cases in which you want it to face away from you, or something like that. So basically, we have to create an algorithm. Well, maybe I shouldn't make it sound so scary. We need to make some sort of way for it to know, hey, which direction should it really be in? So we'll go and do that. So let's go back into our beehive block. And what we're basically going to go ahead and do is we're going to make it so that when we place the block, we're going to calculate which direction we want it to be in. Um, so on placed, there we go. So we're going to modify this to work for our purposes. And just to like understand how other blocks would do it, if we go into like piston block, for example, I just did that by importing and control clicking it. And we see like in here, we have this on place and it calls this like special method. And this method gives an integer, which basically is like the direction it's looking. And we're basically calculating from eye height and stuff like that, which direction it should be facing. We're not going to worry about this eye height thing because we are, instead of, like you can't place a beehive vertically, but you can place a piston vertically, so it matters where like the eye height is, basically. So we're not going to worry about that, but I just wanted to show, we could take a look at how they did it. But I'm not going to base the code off of what this version of Minecraft does. I'm going to base it off of what modern Minecraft does because it is quite a bit more useful. And there's a built-in function in modern Minecraft that's basically like or placer dot get like direction based like which direction they're facing. But unfortunately, we are in beta 1.7.3. We don't have that. So instead, we're going to create our own. And so we know that we want to get a direction out of this because that's what the direction property takes. And we want to get the direction from placer. Okay. And we know that we're not going to worry about up or down. So we'll just take the int x and int z that's given by this. And we're also going to take the living entity placer. Okay. So we want to be able to return some sort of direction from this. And we're going to start off with the x difference between the placer and the x position. And we're also going to take the difference between the z difference between the placer and the block position. All right, so now this is like stuff I've already taken a look at and tested, but what you would do from here is you're going to do, you're going to compare between the, let me import absolute value. You're going to compare between the x difference and the z difference, and you're going to see which one's greater. And if x diff is greater, that means that, basically think about it like this, okay? I'm going to quickly draw like, actually maybe I have GIMP that I can quickly open and just like kind of show what I mean. All right, so let's say that we had the block is like right here, and we had the player here. Well, obviously we would care about this direction because he's clearly like in this direction the greatest. But and like in this direction he isn't very off from, like, let's just say that this direction is x. So he's not very like x wise, he's not very far away. So we basically be like, hey, the x difference is small and the z difference is big. So since he's like pretty far away in the z direction, we care if it's this way or that way. So we just want to know if it's one of these two directions. So that's what we're basically narrowing it down to. And we also are narrowing it down like this way and this way. So we just want to know, hey, is he in this x direction or is he in this z direction? Okay, and after that, we basically want to know if the z direction is positive or the x direction is positive or negative, or the z direction is positive or negative. Okay, and that's basically what we're dividing this up into based off of like potential player positions. And it would also like help determine like, hey, if he was placing right here and like click right there, well, the dividing point then becomes like this. So based off like the player position and the block position, we're basically dividing these like diagonal regions as lines and the direction of here. So that's basically what we're doing, okay? So let's go ahead and implement that in code. Okay, so we first want to know if x difference or z difference is the greatest. So let's take the situation where x difference is the greatest. Well then, if x difference is positive, then we're going to return direction dot east. And I didn't just arbitrarily like grab like the direction that it should be, just guesswork. I actually went in the game and I like console logged like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I based like, hey, the default direction is already north, so like I just looked in the direction the block was looking, and I was like, okay, well that means to my right is east, and then right again is south, and right again is west, right? So just based off of that, I'm like, okay, well I can deduce 1, 2, 3, and 4 are whichever directions. So that's how I know what directions it is. And we also know that like if one direction has to be east, then the opposite of that direction, because we're still in the X area, is going to be west, right? So that's how I determine that. And then else, and I'll also put this function in the comments, or not in the comments, but in the description in case you want to use it instead of just typing it out, because this is a pretty specific function and it should probably be built into StationAPI anyways. So, but feel free to use it, LIT license or whatever you care. I don't know, the no license or whatever. South, and we also have north. So this is basically just comparing the XZ block positions and the placer positions, and that should be good for our purposes. So now that we've like put all that complexity into there, we can have a real simple time in onPlaced. So we're just gonna set the block state after it's placed, and we just want to set it specifically to something. Probably, yeah, that's fine actually. We want to first give the x, y, and z as it is, and we also want to get the default state and basically determine the facing property. And this is going to be like a direction, right? Well, this returns a direction. Great. We can just use that. X and Z position of the block and the placer. And there we go. So now we're getting we're setting the block state, and we're just getting what it would be normally, which we told it right here, like north honey level 0, and we're just replacing that facing value with the direction based off of the block position and the placer position. All right, so let's go ahead and run that and see what that looks like. Yeah, so all of these were facing like this, but now if I go over here, look at that. And you can see that diagonal case that I was talking about. Let's just say that I was right here, but just a little bit this way. There you go. And yeah, so that's kind of, okay, it wasn't really like the diagonal lines that I was thinking. I think it takes priority of one over the other. Yeah, so very interesting, but the general idea still works. You could probably make a better algorithm, but it's gonna work for our purposes here. Cool. Okay, so we have no way of getting that like front honey looking block state. So I'm just gonna like, usually what would happen is like, oh, bee pops out, I'll go to a flower and pollinate it and come back and deposit that into this block. And we could do all that, but that would require us to add entities, and I'm already rambling on for 30 minutes already, basically. And yeah, so instead of doing that, we're just gonna like make it so that every single time we right click on it, it's gonna update the honey level to be increased by 1. Okay, let's go and do that. So we're gonna override on use, and the reason I know that it's gonna be on use is because like when you right click our furnaces, it uses on use, and I can quickly show you that in furnace block. You see right here on use. Well, oh wow, the methods aren't really mapped, but basically what happens here is we're opening up a GUI. Um, yeah. Well, this one's the open GUI one. Yeah, and it has 2 overrides. Let's see, client player. Yeah, set screens. That's the GUI that pops up there. So we'll get into the GUIs and stuff at a later date, but for now we don't really care about all that. We just know we got on use, and that's the one we're going to use. So we're gonna first retrieve our block state by using our world to grab the block state at that position. And we want to know what our current honey level is. So we'll go ahead and do honey is equal to current block state, or I guess current dot get, sorry, yeah, dot get honey level. And then we're gonna do honey plus plus. And if honey, so we know the maximum amount that honey can be. So like this could be 0, right? And 0 is fine if we're adding 1 to it because 1 would be within bounds. But let's say that it was 5 and we're trying to get to 6. Well, if it was greater than 5, we don't have a block state for that because if you look up here, the maximum is 5. So if it was 6, that'd be completely invalid. And so instead we're going to set it to 0 again and it'll loop back around. Okay, so then we can set our block state. And because we're actually changing the text, like this one, so this is a little complicated to explain. This would technically be better as set block state with notify, because that would actually make a block update. But fortunately, when you place a block, as you would expect, it already updates the block and the surrounding blocks. Like when you place a redstone torch, it's going to update the redstone dust next to it. Like the neighbors are going to update. With this one though, when you right click like a furnace or a chest, you don't really expect the block state to change. Or I guess you don't really expect the I don't know, you don't like there's unless you explicitly do it, it wouldn't notify its neighbors. So we want to notify the neighbors and that way it'll also know to update the texture that's on that block. Just understand that like on place has that kind of built in, so you don't need to do this, but you don't usually change a block's like properties and what it's going to look like with on use. You don't change what a furnace looks like on use. You do it based off something else. So that's why we got to notify the block of its change. But that's just a little bit of a spewl for something not that complicated, but I'm making it kind of complicated. Just notify it updates the block. Okay. So anyways, so we're just going to grab that current block state and we're going to give it a new property for honey. Um, and so facing is going to stay the same because this current one is pulling what facing is as well, but we're just changing the honey level to the new honey level. Okay, so there we go. So if I run this now, I go into the world, we have this block, and if I click 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there we go. There's our honey texture. And again, we would change this dynamically based off of like other variables, but this would work perfectly fine. And if I right click again, it'll just reset because that's what I set it to. But what you could do instead is, hey, I'll right click one more time, it'll drop something. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do that just for the sake of like, just to see if it works. And we do that with a world dot. Let's see. There's nothing mapped for this. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. So we're kind of work in progress to map the game for this tool chain. But what we can do is item stack dot or item stack is equal to new item stack, and we can grab ourselves. How about a diamond? Why not? Item dot diamond, and we'll just make sure it's 1. I'm pretty sure it is 1 by default. Let's actually check that and just use that if it is just 1. Yeah, count is 1 by default. So we'll just make ourselves 1 diamond, and yeah, this isn't really mapped. So what I'm going to do actually instead is I'm going to go ahead and take a look at like the Spencer block because we know that that obviously is going to drop an item. So let's see. It might be in this dispenser block entity. Wait, no, right here. Yep, yep. So this looks like the code that we want because this is spawning. New item entity. And then right here, this is the spawning. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll just copy. Yeah, we'll just copy this part of the code and delete some of it. So if I went right here, and this will definitely be like mapped soon because this method 210 is like spawn entity, like world.spawn entity. But we'll just use method 210 for now. because I mapped this, I'm pretty sure, to spawn something, but it's not merged yet, so it is what it is. And if we go right here, these are a bunch of things, but I'm sure this is mapped. Yeah, world, position, stack. So we're just gonna go ahead and do world, X should be the same, and we'll just put it right above the block. And the last entity is the item stack, right? So we'll just pass on over this diamond. It'll be right above. And then this is the spawn into the world. So there you go. This should be good to go. So if I right click, a diamond pops out of there. Beautiful. I just realized, so it's coming out of this corner, and I'll tell you why it's doing that. It's because if we press F3, you see how like right here, if I'm in like the middle of the block, it's roughly 0.5 and 0.5. But here, if I go to this corner of the block, this is like 0, 0, 0, 0. So just to quickly make it pop up in the middle of that block, I'm gonna actually change it so that instead of x being just a plain old integer, we're gonna add 0.5 to it. Yes. One, two, three, four, five. And there you go, popped right out of the center. Yep, that looks pretty satisfying too. I'm kind of surprised that it's like, it kind of looks like it's going whoosh, you know, like out of the block. But it makes sense because we didn't do 0.5 for the y. We just did +1. So it'd be like from this bottom to right here. So it would actually start right there. And I think it's actually pushing out of the block a bit because if I press, I guess there's no hitboxes like the box in modern Minecraft, but if it's inside of the block, it's gonna naturally push out of it. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to get done. So yeah, we can place it in any direction, and we can also right click on it until it pops out a diamond. And so that's how you can kind of use that block state to our advantage. And this could be like honeycombs, but yeah, I haven't shown you guys how to implement items just yet. But that's just about it. Um, yeah, so I guess I'll show you items in the next one. I just wanted to get this out of the way because in the first episode, I just wanted to show you quick and dirty, how do I make a block? How do I give it a texture? And I was able to do it with the texture listener. But let's just say we wanted a more complex block. This would be the way to go about it. And just a quick note on this, like block model. You can make all sorts of block models. Like have you seen a hopper in modern Minecraft? Like stuff like that. Um, all that could be done, like a cauldron, anything, and just like a software I recommend for doing that sort of stuff is Blockbench, and you can just like import textures, and just make sure you open up the JSON file to make sure like the texture actually goes to your real texture, which would be like under textures and then wherever, like under this, as long as it matches like your mod ID colon and then like the folder and the texture name, and make sure you don't include PNG, it should just work. So yeah, recommend Blockbench highly. Blockstates are a very powerful tool, definitely very useful. It also allows for like, hey, if someone made a texture pack, they could modify the look of your block with a lot more customizability. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of downsides. It's definitely just like it's there if you want it, and if you don't want it, just use the typical way that it's done in beta 1.7.3. So that's all. I'll see you in the next one.